Hello and welcome to Super Nintendo Unscripted. This is my somewhat weekly podcast about topics that I just feel like talking about. So just sit back and relax for the next 45 to 50 minutes and we'll have a good time. I got a decent amount of topics that I have to talk about here that we'll go into. I usually talk about my game pickups of the week, my latest video performance, and then we get into like the topics here. So it's we're gonna be talking about YouTube burnout. Atari is looking for some investments. Atari is also buying Night Dive Studios, and Jirard the completionist buys all the 3DS and Wii U Eshop items. So those are the topics that we're going to get into. So sit back and relax and let's get started here. So the game pickups of the week, I didn't really pick up anything. I was trying to think of what did I pick up, and I didn't really do anything. I did get the sticker for that Camera Plus thing that I talked about on the last episode, and that's about it. I have been doing a moratorium on buying stuff recently, so I'm trying really hard not to just impulse buy stuff, because one, my birthday is coming up in 2 weeks, and then also I want to buy a new computer, and those computer, I want to really get a nice one. So I really just want to put the money away and just not touch it. And it's really easy to nickel and dime yourself when you're collecting video games, because it's a couple $20 here, whatever. It's just, it is what it is and stuff. So it's really easy to just not have money laying around. And that's something that for a very long time I've been trying to curb. I've been selling some games to put towards that, and get everything just under control and feel better about where I'm at financially. But yeah, I'll probably buy some stuff next week. I will be at the Midwest Gaming Classic in Milwaukee. So if you are a person who's going to be in the Midwest and you happen to just bump into me, say hi and I'll give you a sticker and a pin. But yeah, I am probably going to look for some Lynx games there. And I don't know if I'm going to find any, but that is my main priority. So let's get into it, and we'll talk about the latest video performance. So I'll also get into why I didn't post last week as well. But the last video that I posted on the main channel was the Wii U's buyer guide. And it's currently sitting at 3 out of 10 performance, which I hate that ranking system because it kind of gets into your head sometimes. But it's 3 out of 10, and it's got 400 less views than the GameCube guide at this point. And it was, I'm overall happy with the performance. At this point in the game, when you're small fry like me, just the fact that at least 10% of your audience saw the video is good enough for me. And it also is happening to grow the channel as well, and that was the whole main point was, I have taken a look at the content, and some of the content that I post, they are kind of evergreen guides and showing you how the PVM video that I do has a ton of views, and it still gets comments and everything. And so a lot of people, I think, like that type of high level cadence for these videos and stuff. I got I got 7 extra subscribers based off of that video, which that's, for me, that's okay as long as the channel is actually growing, because sometimes I'll post a video and it'll do fairly well, and it just it won't move that subscriber needle. And like I said, I don't really care about that specific number. As long as people are watching, that's great. But it's one of those things that you kind of want to make sure and optimize your time and your content to make sure that you're going to make these videos worthwhile for everybody who's watching them, and grow your channel as a result. And that's been the goal of these videos. But it that's a good starter point. The next video that I'm going to do, like the next in the series, is do a Dreamcast video. And I haven't quite decided if I'm going to do a buyer's guide or do a different video just yet. I think I might do one more buyer's guide just to see like if the third video does better than the Wii U or less than the Wii U. Because if it's like diminishing returns, then I'll probably sunset it and then do a different type of evergreen video that can tie in the Retronomics stuff. Or just, just keep like not even tie the Retronomics stuff in there and just keep on doing the Retronomics stuff in a different way. One thing that I will do though next time is make sure that the Retronomics video and the So You Wanna videos are written and ready to go close by, because I really put myself in a pickle last week, and like I'll go over that in a little bit. But basically I wanted to have the Wii U Retronomics video out by Saturday, like, because I'm filming this on Sunday, so yesterday it was supposed to be out and I missed that, and it's pretty much done, but I have like just a little bit left to do. That's gonna go out, it'll hopefully go out tomorrow, barring some unforeseen circumstance. I pretty much have everything set to go. But yeah, like, but after that, like once the Wii U stuff is done, I'm gonna kind of shift gears just a little bit. I want to do a Wii U, not a Wii U, an Ouya video, like an essays. I have a couple essays that I've been sitting on, and now that I have like a good format with these buyer's guides, I think I can apply that formula to these little essay videos, and I think that I can keep the engagement up on those. So like those are probably what I'm going to do before the Retronomics thing. And plus, like, I kind of want to retool the Retronomics series just a little. There's still some time that like I have like this blank space in my Retronomics videos that I want to fill with stats, but I haven't really figured out a good like stat thing to keep consistent, because right now it's kind of difficult when you consider like how the prices were going to go. So I'm still thinking about that, but overall, I am still fairly happy with the content that I've been putting out lately. But that moves me into the next topic here, which is Burnout. So at this point, a lot of people, I think, like, burnout is such a tired phrase. Are we burned out on burnout kind of thing? It's like, just a lot of full-time YouTubers, they do this, and they're like, they come up with a video, and some are a little bit more obvious than the others and stuff, where it's essentially like a plug for their Patreon, right? It's, you kind of find it difficult to like how people can take those larger creators seriously when they say that they're going to go, like, when they're burnt out and stuff, because it's like a huge video, like some larger person like comes up, like some of them are genuinely just burnt out, like where I think William Olimson, he's like a bigger creator and stuff, and like he just like had enough and he was just like done, and he like legit took just like a couple of months, like just disappeared. But other creators, it's kind of like, I'm not really going to name names, but it's just like they kind of allude to the fact that they're not getting paid enough to do it. And then like that kind of, the little Patreon link comes right up from the top of the screen, like boop, and so like it's really hard to take people seriously on that But burnout does happen, and like I experience it from time to time. And I think it's a little bit more prevalent in the creative space because you're constantly having to figure out ideas and stuff. And if you're a solo creator, like a person who doesn't have a team behind them, then it becomes pretty difficult when you're, coming up with these ideas week after week. Like if you're doing this full time and you're doing this week after week, like it gets super tough. And then like if you're in the numbers sometimes like aren't consistent, right? So it's like, you could have a video that you spend like a ton of time on and then it just like bombs and you're just like, oh, like why am I doing this, and like, and that's where it, that's where that frustration comes from. What, like the burnout specifically, it's like you're not, tons of people and stuff will come out and they'll tell you it's like, oh, you're not supposed to YouTube isn't a real job and stuff like that. You really should be just doing it for the fun of it. And it's like, yeah, but also like, if you're not having fun and stuff, then like, why are you doing this and stuff? Like, that's kind of the balance on it. It's like, I talked about this on a couple of episodes back. Like I was like, I don't really want to do this full time because of the stress that comes from making sure that you have content that's not only entertaining but also relevant to your subscriber base. Because like I have done that where I came out with this new series. It's called Local Pixels, and I was like, okay, great, I'm going to talk about Chicago's contribution to gaming. It'll be a lot of fun. And like it just didn't click, it's just like posting a video and getting like on my channel, like when I average like 700 to 1,000 views, within the first week or so, having a video come out and just like having like 20 views for a week is just like, it's a blow to your ego. And so like when it comes to like burnout, like that can have like a negative effect on you, where YouTube specifically, like they it's really funny because like, a whole bunch of creators will complain about this, but it's like YouTube cares about all this stuff, but it's like they constantly put these like little rankings and like little issues and stuff like that, like of metrics that you can like gauge your content and your performance. And like it definitely makes you feel bad, because what YouTube wants from you as a creator is they want you to be a one-trick pony when it comes to content. Like they want you to kind of like, your whole main goal is to keep people on the site, right? So you constantly, like YouTube definitely wants people to return to your channel and then stay on your channel and watch a whole bunch of videos, thing. There's a whole bunch of theories on like what YouTube does, but basically your content plays like your content relationship with your previous back catalog matters a lot to YouTube based on that. So it's like with the Retronomics episodes, I can put out a Retronomics episode and almost everybody who watched the previous Retronomics episode, I can wait like a month or two between things, will most likely get recommended it when I post it back, right? So they kind of go, hand in hand. But at the end of the day though, it's like I have a full-time job. And so if I'm not feeling the content, then like I have to take a step back and like take a break, because my memory card just got full. Like that's another thing to keep track of. But anyway, the whole point of burnout in general is that YouTube kind of, there's like this prevailing idea that in YouTube you have to be constantly pumping out content week after week day after day in order to be successful. And that gets to you because if you are a channel that is, I've seen it happen to small channels that are under 1,000 subscribers. I've seen channels that they hit a hump in like 40,000 or even like 15,000 or something like that, where they're coming out with this content and it's just not hitting the way that they want it to, right? And so basically it becomes like content that you want to talk about versus people what are actually seeing and stuff. So it becomes like this like cat and mouse game, especially if you're trying to make your channel successful. That creates this like overload. And so that's specifically for me is like when I feel stressed out about the content that I make, like I kind of just like stop now. I used to just like push through it. And like my first year, I think it was like my first or second year on YouTube, like that's when I started to actually like get into it and like figure out what I needed to do. But I was putting out one video every other day, or I was posting 2 videos a week. And like that was so stressful because it was like stuff just wasn't going right. Like my production was a big issue and everything. And like I would just get upset with myself because I wasn't putting out the content that I wanted to at the frequency that I wanted to. And like eventually that just like kind of almost killed my motivation to make the channel in the first place. Because like once you get your first like big break, then you kind of want to ride that wave, right? So like when my first video on Metal Jesus Rocks, affecting prices in video games, I wanted to follow it up, real quick and stuff and ride the wave. And like, I wasn't quite there yet. So I just, I eventually just got kind of like sick of putting out content for just seemingly no reason, like no rhyme or reason, like just trying to like just throw spaghetti at a wall and see what sticks. So burnout for me is, like that kind of stress. And like, I personally don't have an issue taking breaks anymore. Like, I honestly, like, people will say like, oh, it'll kill your channel if you take a break or anything. And it's like, yes and no. I think there's like, again, like there's this myth that like you have to constantly be putting out content, but the issue is that if you're a creator who's like consistent, right? Like if you're talking about video game news, then yeah, you probably can't really afford to take breaks because like the news cycle never stops. And there's so many other people talking about, news cycle stuff that if you take a break, then it'll kind of just like, people will pick up, and go elsewhere. But at the end of the day though, it's like, if you like my content, like I've taken months off and I've come back and, the views are where they're at again. Like I think people give like too much, they don't give their viewers enough credit. Thinking that like your viewers are only there and then like as soon as they just turn off the camera and stuff, like they'll go off and stuff. And like, that's happened to me is like I've gotten sick of certain creators that I've you've been subscribed to, and I stopped watching their content for a bit, and then eventually like they kind of do a video that I'm into again. Like there's one creator that I've been watching, they do like they cover like TV show recaps and stuff, like 90 Day Fiancés. Like I don't even watch the show, I just like watching commentary on it. And so their videos were like maybe 25 to 40 minutes long at the most, and then they would come in with like a 4-hour video. And I'm like, I don't have time to watch a 4-hour video on some subject that I'm not even like really that jazzed about to begin with. So, those are certain things. It's like you can come out with, tons of content and stuff, but like you also have to like recognize that like your subscribers and stuff aren't going to stay with you forever. Not the entire subscriber base, but you also have to kind of like you refresh it, and it ebbs and flows. So, for Burnout specifically, just take the break. Like I know that it sucks, like, thinking that you're going to like lose all of your quote unquote momentum, in the channel and stuff. But it's like, if you aren't having, like, if you're just in it for the views, like, it becomes painfully obvious that you're just trying to force content and just poop out a video. Because, like, hate to break it to you, like, unless you're like a person with like a silver tongue, like it becomes obvious, like, when the passion is gone and stuff. And that affects a lot of people and stuff, like, so but yeah, just take the break. If the burnout thing, like, I know that trope has been overplayed, but like, it is real. And it affected me like last week, because it's like I had like, I had like outside forces and stuff too. Like, there were some issues that I had to take care of at home. And so, like, the YouTube channel just takes a backseat. That happened at the beginning of 2022, when I had some real bad stuff go down at work and stuff. And I had to kind of just like focus on that first, and, keep it there and stuff. So, and plus, like, people are understanding. Like, you just don't have to like, make a huge video where you're just like, oh, I never thought I'd make this video, but like, I can't just do this anymore and stuff. And it's like, if you're a big enough creator and stuff, like, I can see that, especially if like outside live performances are like getting to you and stuff. Like, there's been a handful of creators that, just recently in the car world, they were affected by divorce, and like, it just, that's a major life event. So who are we to expect, content, from a person who, needs to take care of other things in their life, in addition to it. Like, it's the same thing. Like, if you were at a regular 9-to-5 job, and like, a certain emotional event happened there, it's like, you could either go in half-assed, not tell anybody, and get fired, or you can hopefully have an understanding employer where, you could be like, hey, like, I need to take like a week off and just kind of just chill and stuff. But, that's my take on it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, so a little bit lighter topic here. A couple of different, like, just random news topics that I wanted to talk about. I not sure if like I'll ever make like a full-length video on Atari again, on the new modern Atari. But this came across me here. Like, I got an email about the Atari game pool, and basically what this is Atari is on Republic, and they're looking to raise funds to basically like make some more games. So if you have not heard of Republic, or if Republic sounds kind of familiar, and you're part of the Amico groups here, then Republic will sound pretty on point, because the Amico had a disastrous Republic offering, and they actually, I think, had to pull it, I believe. But basically, the issue here is, like, Atari, they brought it out here, and like, they're trying to raise $1 million by August 6th. So they got about 5 months left to go, a little under 5 months. And so it's kind of interesting, because it's like, they by collaborating with Atari, FIG intends to provide the funding necessary for Atari to leverage its massive portfolio of video game IPs and partner with outstanding game developers to reimagine these games for the next generation. So basically, they want to move more titles into it, and they are kind of they have this old they have old IP catalog, but they're also starting to dabble into newer stuff. There was this one 80s style VR game that revolves around the Atari franchise and stuff. It's so that's kind of exciting, but it's kind of weird because it's they had the success with the Atari 50th collection and their little Atari Reimagined titles. They tend to do pretty good, but it's just kind of weird that they would come up with this Republic offering, because the perks specifically, it's just it's kind of gross, because it's it's a minimum of $500 that you need to invest. So it's not just throw $15 to $20 in there and stuff. So for $500, what you'll get is a limited edition, custom designed Atari t-shirt available only to the first 500 FIG investors. And that's it. I guess it's, I guess you're investing into shares of Atari and stuff, but it's it's really difficult to see what kind of return that you're going to get out of investing into Atari. But basically, I guess it's returns from games co-published by Atari and FIG. So I guess for each game that Atari goes from, you'll get a decent amount back. But I don't know. For me, it seems kind of weird that they would crowdfund like this and not have a foreign investor or something like that. So it's yeah, so if you buy a share, you're essentially entitled if the game makes $7 million, then you'll get 250 of that. So it just doesn't seem to be a good investment when it comes to that. But hey, it might be wrong, because Atari, for the most part, I know that a lot of people will say, they're oh, well, you can't, Atari isn't the same company that used to come out with the 2600. And, hey, that's correct. But also, Atari isn't the same company that Nolan Bushnell started when the Atari VCS came out. Nolan Bushnell, he sold Atari to Warner Brothers before the Atari VCS even came out. And the Atari brand has changed so many times that each version of the Atari systems was different. It was owned by a different company. So while there might have been certain people that were there, it the company has changed hands so many times over its 50-year legacy that to say that, oh, it's not the same Atari, it's it's never been the same Atari. And and that's kind of to their detriment, because it's they have such a strong legacy brand, but they don't seem to have a clear direction on they don't seem to have a finger on the pulse of what gamers want enough to be successful. And also just the way that they have operated within the past 5 years is so kind of, it's so hard to figure out how these guys intend to run a business. It's almost like watching a person with ADHD just move around the thing, because Like I think I mentioned a little bit back with the Atari XP program, like they abandoned that and then they changed it to like they're now they charge like $1,000 for these games, for these reimagined games, and it doesn't look like they're going to make another like limited edition. Actually, like that's kind of the funny part because the Atari game pool actually, like if you how do I get back? If you go and you invest in like a couple of $1,000, then you get a free game, which is like even sillier. Like it, it it's so weird, like because it's just like um it yeah, it just doesn't make any sense. Like to me, like I really wish that Atari would have like keep consistent for the year instead of just like going just trying new stuff and like seeing it. Like they operate how like I operate my YouTube channel. It's just like, oh, what kind of works today? Oh, I'll just do this. And it's just like whatever. But anyway, like that I don't know if it's going to be successful. They've only raised $150,000, and like when I actually put this on my topic for last week, and I think that they weren't that high at all either. Like they only have 79 investors and stuff. So like I don't know what they're going to get, cuz like yeah, for $5,000 you get the specially produced limited edition Atari 2600 game cartridge of the classic game Fatal Run with a custom design label and artwork box, as well as a limited edition t-shirt. Doesn't seem like that big of an incentive outside of like your investment to like in your returns, and plus like you have to wait for those things to come through. So who knows how long that would take to vest. I certainly don't have $500 or $5,000 to just kind of throw out there and see what goes on. But yeah, it just doesn't make sense. But more power to them, because they did buy Night Dive Studios, and that's kind of an interesting thing because Night Dive Studios, they are a company that specializes in making these like older games run on newer. Okay, yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, like Night Dive has this like hex engine, and basically like it's the same thing that like Limited Run has with like their engine. It's basically it's an engine that allows older games to like run natively on modern hardware. And so like they did games like Turok, the Turok series. They're doing a game of System Shock. They've done Doom 64. They've done Quake. If you're familiar with Modern Vintage Gamer, he's one that's worked on Night Dive Studios for these games. So this is kind of it's exciting, but it's also kind of like cautious optimism with Atari at the lead. Like I'm hoping that like they kind of just like keep the studio separate and like run independently of Atari, because basically you want anytime that you buy a company, you always run the risk of the parent company kind of coming in and just like wrecking everything, because it's like an integration into the company's culture. Google is like notorious for this. Like if you've seen like how Google like will take a company and like they'll just buy it and then you never see it again. Like it just, and same thing with Microsoft. Like Microsoft will buy Rare, and like Rare barely comes out with anything. All these companies are buying for the catalog, but Night Dive Studios doesn't necessarily have like ownership of these games. So they're just like a studio. So it's very possible that they can kind of just like sign people out and like just go from there. And then see like what happens specifically on that. But yeah, I mean, that's really all that I have to say about it. I mean, I'm excited to see like what they managed to do when it comes to that kind of stuff. But let me know, because like I hope that they like make like they kind of like graduate from their Atari 2600 stuff, and then like move towards actually building like their Jaguar stuff. Because like there's a lot of games that Atari published for the Jaguar that could be made for modern systems. Stupid memory card filled up again. Like, I don't know. Like, I gotta make sure that I think I'm just gonna buy like a memory card specifically for the podcast, and then just go from there. But yeah, anyway, Atari buying Night Dive Studios, I think for the most part, I don't really think that they're gonna like change much. I hope not, because like Night Dive Studios has a lot of potential to bring new and exciting things to address. Like, hopefully, like Atari can leverage their brand to get more of the older games out of that legal hell that plagues all of these games, and like brings them out and stuff. So it'd be pretty cool. All right, last topic. Jirard bought all of the 3DS and Wii U Eshop items. So if you've somehow been living underneath a rock for the past 3 weeks, the Nintendo eShop for Wii U and 3DS are shutting down. And by the time that this video goes live, it'll be done. It's on March 27th, and everybody's been making videos about it, and I technically am with my Retronomics, but Jirard kind of like did like a whole Hail Mary, and so they bought everything. And so it's a neat little video because they spent like $18,000 on these things. And it's a neat little video because, like they go through like all the challenges that they had. Like they couldn't buy all of the gift cards. Like they had to do a whole bunch of other crazy like workarounds. And it just goes to show you like how difficult it is even in the modern age to buy games, in that format, and like they even said too, like as they were like buying stuff, like certain things just got delisted before they had a chance to, like there's certain games that they had to beat to a certain area to even be able to purchase the DLC. So, like that's something that like, no one else ever thinks of, right? Because like I haven't really bought anything off of the eShop, to be honest, because I don't really care for digital games in that regard. And even with the eShop closing down, I didn't even see anything that I would want to buy. So that's that. But it didn't even like, though, that they did that, like the video itself didn't seem really well planned out. I think like they kind of just picked it up as they went along and just decided to make it like a documentary, I guess, of it. So good for him that he was able to do all of that. But the one thing that like I think everybody kind of got wrong, I guess, was the fact that like he mentioned like, so he has it all, right? But there's a thing where it's like nobody outside of Jirard and the Video Game History Foundation has access to those games. So what that means is that if you were to like, and this is going to be a video, I'm actually going to make a mainline video of it, but basically the fact that he bought that all and the fact that they're actually like preserved doesn't necessarily mean anything to the average person. Like if if you missed out on those games and they're not available online, they're not archived or anything, then that's it. Like, I mean, that you can't find them. So it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, good for him to like actually buy all that stuff. But at the end of the day, though, it doesn't really like change anything on the grand scheme of things. Like, if you actually missed out on those games. I'm not really going to go too deep into it, but that's one thing that I don't like when people say just pirate. It's like, oh, just pirate it. It's okay. Like, you don't have to worry about it. And it's like, there are things that you have to have people who have backed it up, and it also has to be easy to find. And that's one thing that, like, for like movies or lost TV shows, like there's just like lost media where, even in like the age of the internet where everybody had access to it, you still have to actually rely on somebody to not only buy it, but actually back it up. And that is something that people like just take for granted. And like, the eShop in general is one of those things where like people got like so upset that it was closing down. And it's like, okay, I guess. But like, at the same time though, it's like, do you suddenly care that it's closing because you were in the middle of like downloading everything? Or are you just upset that it's just not going to be there when you get around to it? And that's ultimately like where I'm at too. Like, that once I figured out that mantra, like, that's when I stopped collecting like everything, because that was like my mentality was like, well, I'll get around to it eventually and stuff. So I'll just better buy it now. And so like, that's just a bad way to look at things, because it's like, so are you actually going to play these games, or do you just want to have them to just like look at? And that argument I haven't really seen too much of when it comes to having a discussion about why these games should be preserved. Because let's face it, like, not everything can be preserved or should be preserved in the grand scheme of things. Like, there has to come a time where, things change specifically. Like, the design of a specific item or like a movie or something like that. Like, I really can't like articulate it too much because like I don't really want to spoil too much of my video, but it is one of those things where people will go and just, they want things just to be there in the background because it's like they're afraid that it's just going to be gone forever. Like, and it's like this weird anxiety that it's a separation anxiety that people have with specific media. And it's like, I don't know, like, I haven't seen like a good enough argument for like keeping random like $1 games and stuff. Like, people were like, when Scott Pilgrim versus the World like went away, right? The game disappeared, it was delisted, and so if you happen to have downloaded it at the time, then you were good to go. But then after that, like, it's just gone forever. So if you weren't old enough, or like you just kind of like, just forgot about it. But like, now that the game is out though, like, the game is back on, does everybody still play it? Like, what's gonna happen if it gets delisted again? Like, Ubisoft doesn't need to keep their word. So anyway, I know I've been like kind of rambling and stuff. Like, I kind of got a little bit sidetracked, but Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you have a topic that you want me to talk about next time, be sure to leave it. But that's all that I have to say. And you can follow me on Twitter at snicktendo. And thanks so much for watching.